Before you react to today's headline, take a moment to slow everything down. This is one of those stories that can spark excitement, uncertainty, and unrealistic expectations almost instantly if the full picture isn't understood. Chances are you've already noticed it making the rounds across social media and numerous dinar-focused communities. The headline reads something like this: Major Iraqi dinar development. The Central Bank of Iraq removes 3 zeros from the 20,000 dinar note. It sounds dramatic, it sounds significant, and it's written to capture your attention immediately. But headlines often spread much faster than verified facts. Whenever money enters the conversation, misinformation can become expensive. Today, instead of feeding into speculation, I want to have a straightforward conversation with you. I'm not here to promote anything, claim insider knowledge, or sell unrealistic expectations. My purpose is simple: to explain what this development may actually represent, what it definitely does not represent, and how you can avoid emotional reactions, misleading information, and common scams. This isn't about rushing toward conclusions. It's about understanding the situation clearly, staying informed, and remaining level-headed, while others allow emotions to take control. The first point deserves to be stated as clearly as possible. Large financial institutions, whether it's Chase, Citi, Wells Fargo, or any other major bank, do not have employees quietly sharing secret exchange rates, offering exclusive appointments, providing early access, or handing out confidential opportunities. That simply isn't how legitimate banking operates. There isn't a banker discreetly pulling customers aside to reveal hidden currency information. If someone claims they have a special contact inside a bank who can provide privileged treatment, that's your signal to walk away immediately. You're not being offered an opportunity, you're being pulled toward the beginning of a scam. Legitimate banks operate with confidentiality for a reason. They protect sensitive information through strict compliance requirements, internal approval procedures, and regulatory oversight. When people talk about so-called insider information, they're usually not referring to hidden secrets at all. More often, they're noticing subtle operational changes inside financial institutions. Those changes can include adjustments in employee wording, updates to internal guidance, software classifications, compliance reviews, or staff training procedures. That's what genuine institutional preparation looks like. It's methodical, structured, and intentionally uneventful. Real preparation rarely comes with excitement or publicity. Now let's focus specifically on the Iraqi dinar and the way major financial institutions have historically responded to it. For many years, if someone contacted a large bank and asked about the IQD, the answer was immediate and consistent. We don't handle that currency. It isn't supported. We can't assist you. That was usually the end of the conversation. There was no additional explanation, no flexibility, and no room for interpretation. The response remained virtually identical across the banking industry. More recently, however, something subtle appears to have changed. And the word subtle is important. The response hasn't shifted to excitement, endorsement, or confirmation. Instead, it has become more cautious and carefully worded. Rather than hearing an absolute no, customers may hear phrases such as "not at this time" or "we don't currently provide that service." That distinction is meaningful. In banking, language is selected with great precision. The word can't suggest a permanent stop. The phrase "currently don't" leaves open the possibility that circumstances could change in the future. That doesn't guarantee anything will happen, but it does indicate classifications such as active, inactive, restricted, or under review. When a currency is internal and the bank doesn't issue headlines explaining them. However, the behavior of internal systems can change, and individuals familiar with those processes sometimes recognize those differences. In certain situations, the Iraqi dinar no longer appears to be treated as though it is completely dormant. That does not mean it is actively tradable today. Instead, it suggests the currency is being observed and considered as part of ongoing internal preparation. Preparation requires time, manpower, and financial resources. Banks generally don't invest those resources into something they believe has absolutely no potential future relevance. That naturally brings the conversation back to Iraq itself. Over the past several years, the country has been rebuilding far more than roads and physical infrastructure. It has also been working to strengthen its financial system. Banking modernization, anti-corruption initiatives, compliance with international standards, expansion of digital payment systems, and deeper cooperation with global financial institutions have all been part of that broader effort. Progress has been gradual, and at times frustratingly slow. But those developments have been taking place. International banks and financial organizations pay close attention to these kinds of structural reforms because long-term systemic changes often influence how currencies are viewed well before the public notices visible results. Now let's turn our attention to the headline itself, the reported removal of 3 zeros from the 20,000 Iraqi dinar note. At first glance, that may sound like a simple administrative change or even something purely cosmetic. But central banks do not introduce adjustments of this nature without extensive planning. Whether it's removing zeros, redenominating currency, or reorganizing the presentation of banknotes, every step requires careful preparation. That includes updating financial systems, educating the public, printing new currency, training personnel, and coordinating with regulators. These are long-range monetary management decisions, not changes made overnight. It's equally important to understand what this development does not mean. It does not indicate an immediate revaluation. It does not promise overnight wealth, and it certainly does not mean banks are preparing to open exchange windows tomorrow. What it does suggest is that the Central Bank of Iraq continues to move forward with a broader strategy aimed at improving the country's currency structure, operational efficiency, and everyday usability. These actions are consistent with long-term monetary reform rather than short-term speculation. Now let's talk about risk, because evaluating risk is at the heart of how banks operate. Financial institutions don't make decisions based on excitement or dramatic headlines. They assess exposure, regulatory compliance, operational readiness, and future potential. If the Iraqi dinar had been permanently classified as a currency with no meaningful future relevance, banks would simply continue ignoring it altogether. Instead, what appears to be happening is ongoing reassessment. Reassessment is not the same as approval. It simply means the currency is receiving attention. And in the financial world, attention is almost always the first stage before any meaningful action can eventually occur. Another important part of this discussion involves employee training. Banks regularly revise their internal guidance, procedures, and communication scripts. When official wording shifts from an absolute rejection to a more neutral response, it often reflects preparation without commitment. Financial institutions routinely prepare for multiple possible outcomes at the same time, because that's how they reduce risk and remain compliant. Preparation should never be mistaken for activation, but activation never happens without preparation coming first. Before you react to today's headline, take a moment to slow everything down. This is one of those stories that can spark excitement, uncertainty, and unrealistic expectations almost instantly.